What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_ guy on Twitter. As you can tell, we're in a new location for this video. We're out in my kitchen. And the reason that we're in my kitchen is because we're talking about movies, and movies are my kitchen. Now, I just thought I wanted to make this video a little bit more special, so we decided to put it in a different place because this is one of the big ones. This is my top 10 worst movies of 2012. Why is this a big one? I'm one of those sadomasochistic people that really enjoy ripping into bad movies, and I don't mind going to a theater and paying to see a movie that I know is going to be bad. And why is that? Because I know if it's bad enough, at the end of the year, it's going to make it to this list. And this is where I get my payback. So ladies and gentlemen, strap in to what will be one of the most entertaining videos in this award show, my top 10 worst movies of 2012. We're going to start the list at number 10 with a movie that we have talked about a little bit in a previous video. My number 10 worst movie of 2012 is Chernobyl Diaries. Now, Chernobyl Diaries is a suspense thriller starring Jesse McCartney and Devin Kelly and directed by Bradley Parker, which follows a group of 6 extreme tourists and their tour guide as they go through the abandoned streets of Pripyat, Ukraine, one of the major victims of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And they quickly find out, as they're going through the streets of Pripyat, that they are not alone. Again, the problem here is twofold. The problem is, A, you don't have any characters that really are worthy of any kind of investment, with the possible exception of Chris. All Chris seems to want to do is go to Moscow and propose to his girlfriend. So Chris is kind of a sympathetic character in the movie. Other than that, everybody else is pretty well exchangeable and really aren't worthy of all that much investment. And the movie submits to the same old wonky character logic and stupid decision making, just piss poor logic throughout the entire movie that really plagues the horror genre as a whole. It's not necessarily a bad movie per se. It's just one that was so disappointing given the interesting premise that it had that it's worthy of inclusion among the worst movies. And for those reasons and more, Chernobyl Diaries is my number 10 worst movie of 2012. Moving up the list, my number 9 worst movie of 2012 is Paranormal Activity 4. Paranormal Activity 4 is a horror movie starring Katie Featherston and Catherine Newton and directed by Henry Yost and Ariel Schulman. Now this of course follows the continuing story of Katie from the previous Paranormal Activity movies, as well as a new suburban family who witness strange phenomenon, believe it or not, in their house upon taking Katie's son into their care. Teenage dialogue. In all its forms, a complete abortion on film. And as always, at times, the justification for carrying and having a camera literally everywhere that you go, it becomes wonky as all hell, even 10 minutes into the movie. We all know the format here. Daytime is safe, nighttime is scary, and there's a creepy little kid at the center of all the weird stuff that's going on. And really, I only pay attention to Paranormal Activity movies now to extrapolate the continuation of the story, but even that is really starting to not cut it anymore as the quality of the films tends to go down. Paranormal Activity 3 was a slight spike, but 4 just kind of dropped it back down to earth. For all of these reasons and more, Paranormal Activity 4 is my number 9 worst movie of 2012. My number 8 worst movie of 2012 is Ice Age 4: Continental Drift. Now, Ice Age 4 Continental Drift is an animated action comedy which stars an ensemble voice cast including the likes of Ray Romano, Queen Latifah, John Leguizamo, Dennis Leary, and Sean William Scott, and was directed by Steve Martino and Mike Thurmaier. And this, of course, follows familiar characters that we all know from the other movies, Manny, Diego, and Sid. And this time, Manny, Diego, and Sid are trying to reunite with their loved ones after a continental shift causes them to be lost out at sea. Movies like Ice Age at this point are movies that I can sit through, but ones that offer me so little in terms of entertainment value that it's really not worth the time. Now, there were laughs. There were absolutely some laughs. And there was even some emotional subject matter, albeit tacked on and completely superficial. Maybe it didn't help that I haven't seen Ice Age 2 or Ice Age 3. But even so, I think seeing those movies wouldn't change the things about Ice Age 4 that really, really annoyed me. Some of the voice acting is good, and in animated movies like this, it's really all about the voice acting. Like, if the voice acting isn't good, it's going to take you completely out of the movie. The voice acting here, some of it is good, but some of it is just painfully distracting. Like, I didn't know the Ice Age had a hip-hop subculture, and it's just really, really distracting and annoying voice acting. And for all these reasons and more, Ice Age 4 Continental Drift is my number 8 worst movie of 2012. Moving down the list, my number 7 worst movie of 2012 is Gone. Now, Gone is another one that we've talked about on a previous video. We're going to talk a little bit more about it here. Gone is a suspense thriller starring Amanda Seyfried, Daniel Sunyata, and Wes Bentley, and was directed by Heitor Dalia, which follows the story of Jill as she attempts to track down her lost sister, basically. Her sister, who she believes was abducted by the same serial killer that had abducted her 2 years prior, and in the process is attempting to prove that her abduction was not just all in her head as she had been accused of. Even my massive love for Amanda Seyfried, and believe me, it's massive, really can't save the terrible things about this movie and just the terrible turd, really, that we were treated to as a film. I honestly thought this was going to get a pass no matter what, just because Amanda Seyfried is in it, and I know that's horrible and shallow, but me love Amanda Seyfried. Well, you can't hate a shower scene in the first 5 minutes and a decent line here and there, you know, in places. Most of the movie just has painfully bad, horrible dialogue, really wonky escape scenes. And my main problem is the movie spends 80 minutes building towards a climax that sucked out loud. The ending of this movie was horrendous. If you can just enjoy tension building for tension building's sake and just enjoy that for what it is, that might be an aspect of the movie that you're going to enjoy. But as a whole, this movie was just not good at all. And for these reasons and more, Gone is my number 7 worst movie of 2012. My number 6 worst movie of 2012 is Silent House. The Silent House is a horror movie starring the forgotten Olsen child, Elizabeth Olsen, Adam Treese, and Eric Schaefer Stevens, and was directed by Chris Kentis and Laura Lau, which follows Sarah, who, along with her father and her uncle, are attempting to rebuild an old Victorian house that's been in their family. A house which eventually traps and torments them with unexplained paranormal activity and leads Sarah into the madness of her past. Now, this movie boasts a very film school style opening. White text, a black background, to crane shot of girl on rocks, and some decent early foreshadowing, but in general, the dialogue in this movie is awkward, weird, and tedious. I kind of like the continuous shot gimmick. They attempted to go for a Hitchcock sort of thing, but kind of crapped out on it halfway through. But there are some frames of that shot, continuous shot, that are actually set up very, very well. Ultimately, Elizabeth Olsen is just too damn wooden for any kind of suspense in the movie whatsoever to come across as realistic or believable. And with the unaddressed, unexplained, lazy horror movie cliche, wonky bullshit, idiocy that is just laced all through this movie. I just couldn't do it, couldn't get into it. I wanted to like it. For Elizabeth Olsen's sake, I wanted to like it, just couldn't do it. For these reasons and more, Silent House is my number 6 worst movie of 2012. Now we're getting into the good ones. My number 5 worst movie of 2012 is Don't Go in the Woods. Don't Go in the Woods is a musical horror. That's not a misspeak. It's a musical horror starring Eric Bogosian and Matt Zebeglia, and was directed by Vincent D'Onofrio. And the movie follows a young indie rock band that heads into the woods to get away from society and focus on writing songs for their new album. During the course of the night, the band and their groupies, basically, just start getting picked off, killed off one by one, as the band's leader, Nick, grows increasingly irritable about his band's lack of focus. The flick wastes no time tossing the gore at you. It's pretty well literally thrown at you almost right away. The musical subgenre of horror is an interesting choice. It's a weird choice. Not to mention the added dilemma of non-sympathetic, completely idiotic characters. But at least the Nick character is kind of an interesting one. It's actually very interesting, I would go so far as to say. So they got one character right in the whole movie. Sadly, all atmosphere is blown in the first 10 minutes when the arm of a member of the crew is in the corner of one of the shots and they left it in post-editing. Oh my God, that is inexcusable in 2012. How do you leave someone's arm in a shot? How do you not reshoot the shot? You have to see the arm there. It's literally poking out of the side of the screen, and you left it in the shot. Oh my God, this is horrendous. I cannot let it go. Just completely takes you out of everything that's in the movie. Aside from Nick, the music, and the ending, it's just a very poor effort all around. For these reasons and more, they left an arm in the final cut shot of the movie. Oh my God. Don't Go in the Woods is my number 5 worst movie of 2012. Moving right along, ladies and gentlemen, my number 4 worst movie of 2012 is Project X. Project X claims to be a comedy starring Thomas Mann, Oliver Cooper, and Jonathan Daniel Brown, and was directed by Nima Nourizadeh, which follows 3 high school friends as they plan a birthday party for their main man, played by Thomas Mann. Bump. And it's a party that they want to never forget. A party that they want to put them on the high school map, which, remember, high school map, serious business. A party that very quickly, of course, as always, spirals out of control as word continues to be spread. The main thing that makes movies like this enjoyable is not the slapstick, gross-out physical comedy. It's having investment-worthy characters get into these situations. That's what makes movies like this good. That's what makes movies like Superbad good. That's what makes American Pie good. That is what makes Project X very, very bad. Inside the first 5 minutes, these characters identify themselves basically as expendable, interchangeable Superbad clones that really are not worth getting invested in whatsoever. The finger-banging line, finding the dildo, and ninjas are pussies really were the only laughs in the entire movie. The first 20 minutes of the movie is completely pointless. There's no reason to watch it, and it doesn't make the next 70 minutes worthwhile in the least. The whole 90-minute runtime, really not worth it. For these reasons and more, Project X is my number 4 worst movie of 2012. Now we're into the real garbage. My number 3 worst movie of 2012 is The Devil Inside. Now, The Devil Inside is a suspense thriller starring relative unknowns, Fernanda Andrade, Simon Quarterman, and Susan Crowley, and was directed by William Brent Bell. The Devil Inside follows Isabella Rossi, who's a documentary filmmaker currently working on a documentary about exorcism. This leads her to visit a Catholic school in Rome, which is in close proximity to where her mother is being held in a psychiatric ward after killing 3 people during an exorcism on herself 20 years prior. And the flick really attempts to hook you with the what happened to my mother storyline, which is kind of cheap, but I understand why they did it, but it really tries to hook you with that idea. But really, the flick pales in comparison to both good exorcism movies and even your run-of-the-mill cookie-cutter handy-cam horror movies. Honestly, everything about The Devil Inside just pales in comparison to those movies. The only aspect which really afforded me any kind of emotional investment whatsoever were the few scenes in the movie where the daughter is wondering, oh my god, am I going to go crazy like my mom did? That was kind of investment worthy, so I kind of grasped at straws there. The story just didn't feel genuine, and even the most out there stupid stories can be made to feel genuine, so that to me is just lazy writing. There were a few serviceable jump scares. At least it's better than Shudder. If you want to see the worst movie of all time, rent Shudder. For all these reasons and more, The Devil Inside is my number 3 worst movie of 2012. My number 2 worst movie of 2012 is The Three Stooges. The Three Stooges claims to be a comedy starring Chris Diamantopoulos, Sean Hayes, and Will Sasso, and was directed by the Farrelly brothers, which follows the new and improved 2012 exploits of Larry, Curly, and Moe, as they attempt to save their childhood orphanage, and at the same time they stumble upon a murder plot and end up starring in a reality show. Here's the reality of this flick. It sucked. I didn't smile until almost 20 minutes into this movie. Remember when I said it's trying to be a comedy? Some of the physical comedy and a line or two was pretty okay, but the majority of it is as you would expect. Trying way too hard to be funny, and lacking any real investment incentive whatsoever. I can only imagine really what hardcore and even casual fans of the original Three Stooges thought about this pile of garbage. It can't be positive. I don't dislike the people in it. As a matter of fact, Jane Lynch and Larry David actually play good characters in this movie. And the main trio even sort of have their moments. I just dislike most everything else. And it's for these reasons and more that The Three Stooges is my number 2 worst movie of 2012, but there was one that beats it. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, my number 1 absolute worst, oh my god, this movie was terrible, worst movie of 2012, The Scorpion King 3. Scorpion King 3 is an action-adventure starring Billy Zane and Ron Perlman, and directed by Roel Rain, which follows the titular hero Matthias, if you follow the Scorpion King mythology, now an assassin for hire, who must defend the kingdom from an evil tyrant for a chance to regain the power he's lost. What kingdom, you may ask? What tyrant, you may ponder? Who gives a shit? What might be some self-aware dialogue and intentional B-level acting and action comes off as utter, unwatchable garbage. There are some fun cameos by both professional wrestlers, like Dave Bautista, and professional fighters, like Kimbo Slice, but only if you buy into this particular idea and this kind of comedic lampooning. You know, the bottom of the barrel, lowest common denominator, uninspired, lazy comedic lampooning. Will you get any enjoyment from this wonky hunk of bullshit? It works neither as action, nor adventure, nor comedy, nor satire, failing on every single level that it attempts to climb to. It might have been direct to TV, but it should have been direct to the garbage fire. And for these reasons and more, The Scorpion King 3 is my number 1 worst movie of 2012. See? Wasn't that fun? Just to go over the list here for you one more time, in case you attempted to blow your brains out while we were talking about these terrible movies. Number 10 was Chernobyl Diaries. Number 9 was Paranormal Activity 4. Number 8 was Ice Age 4 Continental Drift. Number 7 was Gone. Number 6 was Silent House. Number 5 was Don't Go in the Woods. Number 4 was Project X. Number 3 was The Devil Inside. Number 2 was The Three Stooges. And number 1 was The Scorpion King 3. That's going to be it for this video, and we hope you come back for the next one. I may end up having to cut it into 2 videos just because I love talking about movies so much. But the last award that we have to give out for 2012 also happens to be the biggest award. It is my top 20 best movies of 2012. I hope you'll come back for those ones, because it might not be the most fun one to do, but it's definitely the most relaxing and the most rewarding video that I do on the awards. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and this is the 2012 Bridgewater's Finest Awards.